Uh, I was having this actually issue and conversation of where, I we're running our trainings, and so our trainings are popular, all this, and we're having this cool year. And me and my partner that I do the trainings with, um, one, who I had originally started the trainings with, set them all up and whatever. You back in the day, you saw her in the background.
Right, right. Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah.
uh, like we had like the same teacher, same background, so we worked sort of like in tandem. Even how we set up the training, and so um, as things begin to transition, and we were setting up the business, and she was stepping out of it, she got upset. She turned it over to my current partner, who only had a small amount of time within yoga in the sense of being a teacher and so on and so forth, but very intelligent young lady. And but she just kind of got thrusted into this position. And so one, I was gonna need the help, regardless, because we do like 20 people and I needed that organization. So we've been running our trainings this whole time. Now, because of our different backgrounds, in a sense, I come from it from a different perspective, but yet have to respect her teaching. And so I've been like holding different things in of where there were things I disagree with, but I didn't want to like really kind of get into an argument or feel like, I was just being a an old asshole. If I say that,
Okay.
just trying to be too agreeable, if you will.
Hmm.
And so last weekend, now we've probably run now, this is probably our fifth, sixth training or so that we've run together. And um, that there are changes that needed to be made because she wasn't used to or comfortable with some of the things that me and Raja did. And so we had removed some things. And then this last weekend, I saw that she had what I saw, I saw that she had begun to start taking on some of the things that I had been suggesting forever. Um, and then I saw her doing differently in a sense. I was stressing these points within yoga, and she was saying that they weren't a big deal, and now she's progressed. She's taken on some of the things, of course, that I have been recommending because I've been doing it for a while. And I'm watching her in the video, and so I see her now making adjustments and doing things that before she wasn't so comfortable with, but she's been gaining this knowledge. And so she had her class run over like another like 20 minutes or so. And now this made us shorten the time of where we would spend together explaining, the different poses and the breakdowns. Like my favorite part because I get to really explain the breakdowns and stuff that we took out before. So now she was like, "Oh no, we don't have enough time to do it our regular way, so we just gonna kind of run through and summarize it." And so I sat there and it was like, "Oh, what?" And I just got quiet. I just like got quiet. And now I'm like all in my head and whatever. And we just like running through this like summary of the thing in which I just totally disagree with. And so I just sat there silent and let it kind of be this summary. And then the like day went on and I really didn't have much to say. And the next day I was still pissed off. Like what was that? I think we did not talk. That was last weekend.
Okay.
We didn't
Yeah.
talk.
Right.
Probably would have helped heal me out, but
Sorry about that.
so I was still, I think I went for a walk and did some things, and I went in and I was still like, ugh. But in this work, I always know like there's work I'm gonna have to do to now have to speak to this. It's not gonna be something that I can hide. And now I'm more pissed because the next day is gone and I still got emotions about it.
Mm.
And so, like week goes on and I'm still like because I'm not ready to talk about it, so I have to like still hold it back. We have a photo shoot we have to do, and I still, have it on my heart, and so the whole week goes round. As I got busy and we just hadn't really got to hang out, but I know we was gonna have to go in this Saturday. And so getting back to what we were talking about, I had to say that, one, I think apologies are meaningless. And so, and this is something I was saying to like we have a circle, and that somebody can apologize. We talked about this before, and just saying I'm sorry don't mean anything. It just is no different than like um, trying to wipe the slate clean. If you don't recognize what it was that you have done, then you're gonna do it again. You have not understood what it was that caused said issue, and now you're just going to repeat it. And so for me, um, one, I knew I wasn't just going to apologize. I had to be able to speak to why I was so upset,
Right.
right? And in the sense of not make it right or wrong, but now say, one, there's a lack of communication that I've been having with you, and in that, I've been like holding this stuff back, and and it just caused a good moment of communication. That's the, I think, beauty of really trying to of owning your shit is that you truly get to grow, as opposed to when we're just looking for apologies. That's more just about our ego and whatever. Make me feel better. You make me feel bad, now make me feel better.
Right.
And that's not owning our own shit. That's making us powerless.
Right. No, there, I don't think I've told you this one, but I had a recent interaction with a young man. We were at a gathering, and this young man, he's like 9 or 10, and he was playing with this little girl. She was about 8 or 9 also. So after a while, the little girl decided she didn't want to play anymore, so she came and sat with her dad for a while, and then she decided, okay, I need to get away from this kid because this kid is high energy anyway. So anyway, she decided she just wanted to get away. So she went in a room and was laying down. So the young guy came and he was looking for her. So he started asking where she was and why, and she can't come out and play. And he was about, I want this, I want this. So the dad actually, so he said to the dad, can I go in there? Can I go in the room and ask her, can she come out to play? And the dad said no. And the dad kind of said, well, no, I'm not going to let you go in that room with my young daughter. Not suggesting that he's going to do anything sexual, but the point was like, no, she doesn't want to play, and you're not going to override that because you want her to play. So there was quite a few of us adults watching the game, and he said I laughed when the father said that. He said I laughed, and me laughing hurt his feelings. So he brought it to my attention, and we were talking.
The 9-year-old.
Yeah, the 9-year-old. Yeah.
Okay, I'll make it sure.
He brought it to my attention. I knew it was his mother bringing it to my attention because what he was saying, the things he was saying. Oh, the comment was inappropriate. It was sexual. And I know what a 9-year-old sounds like. Okay, so this is not 9-year-old speak. So anyway, after asking him a few questions, I said, I apologize to you because I laughed, but more important, because your feelings were hurt. So I'm apologizing for hurting your feelings, but I also want you to recognize how your behavior was part of what happened. And I speak to him a little bit, but the point you're making, owning the outcome is important, because a lot of people don't recognize that their action causes a reaction, and sometimes the only thing they focus on is how the reaction affected them, rather than how their action affected the other person. Just like you were saying with your partner, she didn't care about how, well, she wasn't focusing on how her action affected you, recognizing, like you just said, she knows that's the most important part of the day for you. She knows that's where you shine and glow and have the most joy. So in that place, recognizing, you're right, she should have stepped up and apologized. But on the opposite, you're saying you were apologizing for getting mad, which is fine, because what you're saying is, I allowed your action to control my reaction. I needed to address this. I'm not absolving you of what you did, but I wanted you to understand how your action created my reaction. Not that it was the appropriate thing, not that I was justified in it, but as you mentioned, I want you to understand my view, how I evolved through this, so that next time I don't have to explain it to you again. Or if it happens, I will explain it to you again.
The end piece, I don't know. I would say, I think in it being a true opportunity of sharing one's perspective, like when I think we're humble and we're vulnerable in what it is that we're sharing, because I had to explain, like, yeah, I was like, I was pissed. There's no, me, I'm me. All my shit is kind of there's no
Right,
hiding.
right. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I now, especially now, I don't even know how to hide it. If I'm not happy and I don't have a big smile, everybody's like, what the fuck is wrong?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So she could just see it was, and then again, even how I was treating her. So it was like a domino
Correct,
effect
correct, correct,
of how things were
correct.
going. So I needed to, one, share that, and th- when you own yours, the other person has no other place to go but to own theirs.
Right.
Because now you're just sitting there exposed, if you will, because this person has revealed themselves, been that true individual, and you can't come back and be, egoic, right? Like
You should.
and well, I mean, I have not had it happen.
Okay.
I can say, like, this for me is a key point that always goes back to what I learned that night in my living room, is that I think truly when you come from love, people are humbled themselves. There's, you have no place to go, and so you're on the verge of, of emotion, and finding that balance of that truth. And so I just haven't yet, at least, had, or been, let me say, I haven't been foolish enough to speak to someone so close minded, or spirit, within spirit, to um humble myself in that way. You have to be someone that I would respect to want to sit down and now spend this time with. I will say that.
Right. No, you're correct in saying, when you put out love, it's hard for someone to push back with hate. It, and even if they do, and you continue with love, you diminish the hate, and that's, again, scriptural. It says that you put that out, eventually you're going to put out the fire. It may not go out immediately. You may have to throw a few doses on it, a few, few more flow of love, but eventually it will go away, because you're right. There's nothing you can, when someone is showing you love and compassion and caring, you have to stop being an idiot. You have to. Some people slower than others, but you have to. And I agree with that. And that's one of the things that I think Bible teaches, and as witnesses we encourage, and that is love. Show love for your neighbor, love for your brother and sister. And even, as I've said this before, even following the example of Jesus, showing love to the unlovable. Mm-hmm. Showing love in those moments where the individual don't deserve it.
That's so real. And again, I was explaining to people, like, because that's really not even about them. That's about you.
There you go.
Right? You don't deserve to pick up their hate.
Yeah.
And that's the realest thing for me. And I think when you stop showing that love, you let down your force field. You let down your protection. You allow in that hate, that negative, that opportunity for that violence, if you will. And for me, again, from a yogic perspective, this is what we teach in the yamas and niyamas, the observances and restraints. It's in a sense of what we talked about before, like what the 10 Commandments may be. Within Toltec philosophy, there's the 4 agreements of where you should be impeccable with your word. You shouldn't make assumptions. You shouldn't take things personal, and you should do your best. Right. When you kind of come from that, if I don't make assumptions, if I don't take things personal, that's that lack of judgment. That's me now having to, really listen or understand where that person is coming from. Right. And doing my best is recognizing that I might not, be impeccable with my word at times. I might take things personal. I might make assumptions, but I do my best to recognize that. And so when you can, like, hold yourself to these moral truths, then it tries to keep you in that sense of love. Again, why we should not judge, because I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what's going to. Your burden ain't mine to take on in that way. But I can offer you love, help, what it is that I can do. But me stepping in your way or being your crutch, you know, that ain't my burden. No offense, but I see a lot of folks looking to go carry people when they can't walk themselves.
That is so fundamentally true and powerful. The challenge with what you just said is that, unfortunately, these people think they're walking. They don't recognize that they're walking off a cliff, and they're taking that person with them. Although it's just like you say, I'm going to help you walk, but I'm walking off a cliff. I'm living in hate, and I'm gonna bring you in. And you talk about people that have this complaining spirit, have this negative spirit, that every time they have to find the bad in something. And when they come together, no matter what good there is, that they're going to find the one bad thing in there. As I was sharing earlier with my son, you have a life of a relationship with this person full of goodness, and then all of a sudden that person was imperfect for a minute, or imperfect for a day or a couple of days, whatever it may be, and then all of a sudden you focus on that imperfect act and made them an imperfect person. And although they're an imperfect person, what I meant more important, that we tend to focus on a bad act and make them a bad person. rather than recognizing there's a complete difference between one's actions and one lifestyle, one behavior, and you can see um, who someone else by the cumulative um, experiences that you've had with them, not the bad, not the you know. Again, when you look at it, as you said, balance. If you're in a life with someone and they're more negatives than positive, then you just need to get rid of. Unless that's the life you want. Okay.
That's, I mean, that's true. That's true, but some people don't know the difference in the sense of getting rid of them and understanding the life that they want. Some people feel like, in the sense of that mind, like, well, this is who I am. And now, in the sense of this is who I am, because I keep these like concepts, then I keep these like minded people around. And it's like, oh, well, if only such and such wasn't around, then I wouldn't do these things. And they move and they go to a different town, a different whatever, and they find such and such again, just different name, sometimes different color, but still same concepts, still same mindset. Right. And so it's like, you move from one ghetto to the next ghetto. And that's, people not understanding again that truly getting rid of someone in that sense is getting rid of that mentality. Because if your friends drop off once you can't talk about the same old shit, you know.
You someone said something to me the other day that can summarize what you just said. And what they said was, I don't know why I attract these kind of people. But that's the point you're making. These people always come into my life, but what they've asked the question, not understanding how they ask the question, or they're not understanding how they're empowered to answer the question. They say, why do I attract these people into my life? Why do these people always come into my life? It's because that's what you want.
That's who you are.
That's who you are. That's who you want to be. And that's why, even though you view it as negative, how you view it as undesirable, you attract them. As you said, you get rid of this group here, you go to the next group, and all of a sudden the same kind of people surround you. It's like, why? Oh, that's what you want.
That, man, it's in a sense like the more I begin to change in the sense of diet and thinking and even the stuff that I wanted to do, the more, the more in the sense of where my ex began to act out. I was again having this conversation with I can't remember with who now, friend or my daughter or some. Anyway, just as I was like, we got to stop eating this fast food. I'm just now becoming more aware in the sense of how we're living. She's working 12 hours. I'm working 12 hours. It's just this life of just run, run, run. Who's raising my kids? It's like things are a little bit out of control, but yet not, right? The rest of the society, everything's great.
Right.
But I'm like, shit, my issue as a kid was that nobody was there to watch me and I was able to run amok.
Right.
And my kids are getting ready to start coming of age. And so am I not going to be there? This is all the stuff that is starting to come into my mind is the more um, getting into this spiritual awareness. It's like, what the hell am I here for? Uh, and so as I started cooking more, I started like taking care of the kids more in the sense of wanting to be checking on them and everything. And now I started to get into more fitness. Then she began to get, I guess, more into the drinking, which was something I didn't know. We just begin to go in these like completely different ways to where as I've now really got to a point to where I was ready to take it to a business sense, then we were on completely different planets, if you will.
Right.
And I say that in a sense because I start recognizing that I had started making this change of where I didn't want to drink anymore. I didn't want to be whatever, and and again, like, because what she'll say is that, well, you smoke cannabis. And I'll say, yes, you're correct. I do smoke cannabis. I've smoked cannabis and I've built worldwide networks. I'm not out of my mind when I smoke cannabis. And so for me, I've never liked to do anything of where I can't be within my mind. That's just I don't like to go to sleep. I tell people that, like like lay down to go to sleep. Like I don't like being out of my mind. I don't, the doctors, I was getting a colonoscopy, and so they were like trying to put me out, they lay you back on a gurney, and I was like fighting them. And then I woke up and was like, hey.
Yeah, yeah,
And they was
yeah.
like, it's over.
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly, exactly.
What?
We're done with you. Yeah, right.
So and so I say it like to say, well, yeah, I know what it is I'm doing. I'm not saying in the sense that anything we do in this world is great. I think we all have our vices. But at the same time, can you recognize where you are with something? Can you find your senses, if you will? And in that, she tries to make that comparison. She tried to make that comparison to my daughter, who, they got into a fist fight, which I did not totally recognize, of how it had gotten into. But again, they were both intoxicated. And as I had to tell her, I was like, we've never had an incident. Like, I could not imagine. I in what my child means to me, son and daughter, I could not imagine us being at a point to where we would be at blows with each other. I mean, it is just in the sense of the relationship I've always approached and had with them, and how it's always, in a sense, been like, anything can happen. They could say something about my mama. I don't know. But, I, I just couldn't imagine that would cut me to the core, that they would feel that need to put their hands on me. And then, so as I say that in a sense of what that change of mind is, and how you, in a sense of let someone go, it can be real, and at the same time hard, because you may think that some people are supposed to be there, but if they don't want to be there, right? And that's the thing of this, taking responsibility for your life. Like, can't nobody do it for you. And my thing at the time of what put me through that jail, the literal jail in job and everything, was believing that I had to put up with that. It- then, they've got to go with, so I deserve this. Like, no, I don't deserve it. She don't deserve it either. But should you can't jump in after a drowning individual. You could throw a lifeline to them.
Right.
And if they decide to take it, if they don't, it ain't your fault. You still on dry land and they not.
That's a good analogy because again, like you said, sometimes we feel the only lifeline is your life. So in effect, sometimes we sacrifice our life to save someone else's when that person doesn't really care or want to. And it's a fair analogy because, like you said, sometimes the one lifeline you don't want to sacrifice is your life, in the sense that you want to help them through what they need, but you don't want to abandon your life for theirs. You're not going to, as we're talking about, be willing to accept a certain attitude, behavior, issues in your life that you recognize as being destructive, that you recognize as being going down the path or the way that is not the way you want to, that not the way of life that you would like to pursue. And again, that's where, as we were saying earlier, a lot of people bring people in their life that distract them from the way, and they don't recognize it. They don't, or even more important, I wouldn't say they don't recognize it. They just, as you just said earlier, they just accept it as is. You know, that person needs to be, it's God's will that that person is in my life and creating chaos in my life. And you know, unfortunately, there's a lot of blasphemy where people associate things with God that he's up there saying, no, whoa, easy now, because of the choices they make. You know, I know there's that element of, yeah, everything is God, with the caveat that the choices we make, as the options we are provided, is in, here's the way that I would like you to take. The alternative exists. Now, as you choose, don't say, I'm gonna ignore your way, but I expect the benefits. I expect the outcome you just described over here. If I followed obedience, I'm gonna get it, even if I act in disobedience. The outcome that you say here, if I act in love, I will get. I expect it, even if I act in hate. And I think sometimes that's how people live their life in this state of I like the words you like to use in the past. I don't know if you still use it, of misunderstanding.
Yes, I use it. It's all for me always that same concept, and it's I walk this fine line because this would always get X in trouble.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, it's something key that you said, that God is in everything, and sometimes we forget that we are part of everything. And now God being in us has a very important aspect. And that creator piece, meaning that I am creator of my harmony as I am creator of my disharmony. And that is based on my understanding or my misunderstanding. And most of us don't slow down enough to pay attention to that, to again take responsibility for what our consequences are. And so we rush into whatever and be like, oh, I was lucky. Right. And now you give it out to some superstition, something outside of you. And this is the same thing we do with God. So now God being outside of me and whatever, now, oh, he has put that person on. Like, no. You have put that person. God has given you the chaos for you to create whatever it is you want to create for yourself. Chaos is not a bad thing. Chaos is the all. It is the everything. And now we get to pull out of the billions of human beings and animals and moments and whatnot, and have the life that we have. People now fill in and hire the cast and crew for the life that they have. And some of us think that we need to hire the cast and crew from the life that my mom and my grandparents and so on and so forth had, and We continue that on, and we look around and be like, damn, I'm doing the same thing. That's because you just picked up their script. Some of us may begin to write our own script. Some of us may fall into hatred and fear and whatever in writing that script. And as we're getting these unhealthy outcomes, right? We want to blame it on the people, blame it on the God hates me, and so right, people want to blame God for everything, but the fact that He's giving you the opportunity for you to either kick your own butt or run.
Yeah, it's powerful. I think I heard someone ask a question the other day, and it's sort of in harmony with what you just said. And the question that they ask is, are you living life? Are you pursuing life?
Mm.
It's an interesting question.
That's real.
It's an interesting question because, like you just said, are you living? Are you creating? Are you writing a script? Are you just pursuing? And in that pursuit, whatever happens, happens. You don't feel in control. You're pursuing, and it's interesting because one of the things I was talking about is the cultural mindset that we have today, in that we have to pursue life, we have to pursue work, we have to pursue riches, we have to pursue materialism, we have to pursue this. We get a bigger house and a bigger car and a more expensive car, and we see it in not only the mindset of individuals, but we see it in the marketing. We see it in the commercials. Cars should be getting cheaper, not more expensive, because of technology, but yet cars are more expensive. Okay, every year cars go up 10, 20,000, and what do people do? They run out and buy. They just like I said, I need a bigger house. I was talking to a young man the other day, and he was talking about his career and growth, and he made an interesting point. He said he had a new manager, and the manager asked him, "What do you want to be? What you see? How you see your future?" And he said, "Well, I want to be a senior engineer in software." Right? He said, "I want to be a senior engineer." And his boss asked him, "Well, how soon?" He said, in about a year and a half. And he said his boss said to him, "If you want to be a senior engineer, you need to start acting and behaving like a senior engineer now. You need to start demonstrating the skills and the attitudes and the drive and the motivation, the leadership that is reflected in the senior engineer." And it was interesting because the young man that I'm talking about is Black, and his boss was Black. And his boss was providing them that guidance in this world. In the software world, there's not a lot of us.
Mm.
So when if you expect growth, you have to be better than and be able to demonstrate it. And I was explaining to him, I said, when white people promote white people, that's normal. When Black people promote Black people, that's questioned. So whenever what your boss is telling you is, I want to promote you, but you have to work and demonstrate to everyone that you are deserving, that I am not promoting you as a token, as they do. I'm not promoting you because of the color of your skin, as they do.
Man, there's this show I know you don't watch. There's this show of there's this I believe he's Puerto Rican, but he's melanated, but deeply melanated, and he says this line of like they question him like why he didn't react or like go off and whatever. And he said, I can't afford to do that. That's a white man's luxury. It's like, oh my God, it's such a like just a hell of a line. He's like this executive in
Right.
this company, and he says like just this hell of a line that I think is iconic.
And that's powerful right there. Yeah, powerful right there. Mm. Wow.
But yeah, definitely understanding that pursuit. I can see in a sense of for my own sense of that's what it felt like. It's like, am I chasing my own tail here? Like, I did it two times. The first time I was like 25, whatever. I had my first house. I'm doing, what I was, pursuing that happiness and whatever, and I hated it. And then I struck out and whatever went, and I started doing my own computer career, and I'm just like, life is like doubling damn near every year. Loved it and whatever. And then I was like, all right, let me let me do what I'm supposed to, do and whatever, and pursued it and put it all together. And then I hated it. And I was like, what the hell? And so then I'm like, all right, let me just live life. Let me just see what it is that and as it began to reveal itself, I was supposed to hate it in the sense like that wasn't the cool thing to do. To go off and teach and want to share this deeper understanding, whatever, like that wasn't supposed to be cool. And so I was like, I've been fighting it. Like, no, I don't want to. Let me just go to sleep and like make a lot of money. And so, I think that it's a hard thing because you really have to go against society in a sense to say that, to really like live a fulfilled life, to live a life of service, to do something that you love that gives you fulfillment, right? In a sense that fulfills the ideals of the people around you or the greater society and whatever. Like, because I know I'm what would you call that? A unicorn, basically. Anywhere I go, I tell people in a sense of who I am, like what my story is, and they're like, "What? You teach yoga?" And I love to say it. I think it's always been my personality to like be in people's face as something weird. Like,
Hmm.
so what do you do? It's like, I'm a yoga teacher.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Like
oh,
you look too smart to do this, to do that, to yeah, yeah. You
oh
don't, yeah.
yeah. Oh my God. I never forget I had a guy, I rolled into work and back then I drove a BMW and I banged, West Coast hip hop is where I'm from.
Right.
And so we're inside work and now I'm debating somebody on politics because, me, I like to debate stuff in politics. And so this white guy named Jay. He's like, man, who the hell are you? I just saw you rolling here in a BMW banging Snoop Dogg and whatever. Now you in here having this political discussion about, and I can't even remember what it was. But you know me, I'm going to carry on in an
Right,
intellectual
right,
conversation.
right,
And
right,
so he's like, blown away because again, he ain't expecting a brother to be who a brother is.
right.
And I'm very proud to say that at least even within my pursuits, they were my pursuits. And that is a broken way for me to now kind of live life. And I think, we kind of got to go through our young ages of, with my daughter, it was blaming me in the sense of, well, you didn't like cats, so I didn't like cats. You blah, 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 so I didn't. And at first I was like, well, wait. That's just me being me. Like, like you can't fault me for being your dad. You
Right,
can fault yourself for thinking that you needed to be me.
right, right,
Now, I
right,
ain't never said you needed to be me, but you taking on my whatever, like that's just being a kid.
right, right,
What you learning is that you need to go off and be yourself. And there's, I think, what we all have to do in the sense of have that ego death, which again is why 30 is such an important age biblically. And I think historically, it takes that as you get into your 30s to go, you know what, let me start really finding it on my own. Let me come into myself, if you will. Let me strip away of all those childish thoughts, those egoic thoughts, and come into living this life to be fulfilled.
Interesting comment you just made. I never thought about it that way. Why do you say that 30 is pivotal and you threw in biblical? What's your biblical reference?
My biblical reference is Jesus, is Christ. We don't talk about Jesus' early life for a reason. It makes no never mind. And again, I'm just speaking from a philosophical standpoint.
But I would say, and I asked the question specifically because I agree with you that it was at that age that the transition occurred, and you, as what you just said, scripturally, the 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 important element in Jesus' life was that transition, action and behavior, not anything before that. Okay, the only thing before that was of any mention was at 12 years old when he was developing that knowledge and or sharing that experience there. But everything else,
And what happens at 12?
he was at the temple, and he was having a discussion with the spiritual leaders at the time. And again, according to scripture, he was again engaging with them and sharing with them perspective that they were not necessarily in agreement with.
And so at 12 is where we begin to go through puberty, where we now begin to come in to a sense of knowledge. For me, again, is what we begin to talk about our fall. Before this time, we're kind of innocent. We're just babes playing. And then suddenly pubic hairs begin to come, our hormones kick in, we begin to find this shame or whatever. We come into this knowledge of ourselves. Again, many cultures begin to mark this through rituals or rites of passage, right, of coming of age. And so, again, historically and scripturally, explaining what it is that we spiritually are going through ourselves. And so now it's at 30 that we have these opportunities. And it wasn't until like I had a conversation with a friend beforehand as I'm like beginning to go through this bit of a transition. And he's a knucklehead and whatever. And he told me he got into being a Jehovah Witness, and all this because he had had this vision and this and that. And I was like, wait, what? You've had? He was like, yeah. So I got into being Jehovah Witness, and then I fell out of it. And it just interests me that one, I wasn't alone. And so I was like, wait, so then many people are going through this. But everybody is not so good. I'm a geek. When I kind of latch on to something, I need to understand it. I need to like tear it apart. Mom was upset because she gave me a boom box and I had to open it up to understand it. Now, of course, I tore it up, but I just wanted to know how the damn thing worked. And so, same thing within my spiritual journey. I just, my mind won't let me let it go. I wanted to know how it worked. So, in the sense of him not having that patience, I could get it. But now to recognize that we were all going through it, just everyone wasn't necessarily being hooked or really fathoming what was happening. And so that's what had me now look at it from that deeper sense, from a philosophical standpoint. It's like, wait, in the sense of it being from this point of it being about all of us, that good news is that if you can really begin to start tackling your ego, you can tap into the God inside of you to that ability to listen and hear, as opposed to, like you said, like we're distracted by all these things. Life, in a sense, is pulling me away from um, my ability to see that I'm cause and effect here. If I'm within faith, then the effect is going to be a faithful outcome. And that means, like, if I'm moving in faith and I lose something, I lost that for a reason. I lost that so now I can make room for the thing that I'm actually calling in. I understood this, and I was like, I need a job that's going to give me more time at home, and so on and so forth. And so I lost my last job, and I was like, what the hell? I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is what you asked for. Like, okay. And so I sat back, and then the job that well, had been waiting on me for a year. It had been waiting on me for a year, but I was so distracted, snowboarding and partying and doing my thing. And I'm talking to the guy, and he's like, hey, I'm like, man, I'm snowboarding, I ain't got time, and didn't talk to him for a year until I finally got out of my own way.
Mhm.
And it takes that having to go in the desert. It takes that having to remove yourself, even to question your friendships, question your eating habits, question, what are the things that you're intaking into these different senses. Within yoga, again, we talk about the body as the city of the 11 gates. Sometimes they say 9 gates, but the gates are the different holes within the body. And so this is our city. And once I can begin to start understanding my desires, my distractions, right, I can now have a say over this city and begin to listen to what is already in there. Like Einstein didn't invent anything new. He shut up and performed his thought experiments, meditation, prayer, however you want to say it, and the universe is revealed to him. Right? Like he'd tell you, no, that was just in there. And I could do it. He knew he could come up with it, right? He told his ex-wife, his wife at the time, like, listen, I'm gonna be able to see this through and whatever, and I'm gonna give you X amount of money and whatever, and we can get a divorce. He already kind of knew it because he understood what he could do was sit in that thought experiment in a way that nobody else could, right? And was so good at it in the thought of it of again, like, and I tried to model it until I got this Nike deal, but where you just had all of the same shirts, all of the same pants. You didn't have to waste that mental capacity on trying to pick out different clothes, right? Be
No, right,
distracted by your fashion. and
right.
and that's the simplicity of it, of being able to get to a point like shit, it's all there for you. All he had to do was just sit there and do what he loved, and the world took care of him.
Yeah. No,
Einstein
that's
didn't have to go work no crazy job. The beauty of
but
it.
no, that's powerful. I want to go back to something you said, and I'm gonna have to jump off in a minute, but I'm gonna do a little more research on this. And it's a you make a very compelling argument, and that is when we look at these transition points that you just talked about, 0 to 12 or 15, because like you said, 12 to 15 is that time frame that culturally people look at that transition into womanhood or adulthood. So that and you nicely called it puberty. And I know it's not your word, but I like the way you phrase it. And then that element of 30, where now we're transitioning out of that area of pubescent into adulthood. And it's it's uh, it's giving me a place like Einstein. I have to sit down and and reflect on, because there's a significant meaning and value between 0 and 12 in that age of innocence, as you said, in that age of being a
Being in the
innocent,
garden.
huh?
Being in the garden.
Yeah, in effect, exactly. And then that period of time from 12 to 30, where you begin to live in misunderstanding, or you begin to ingest the environment around you, and then that influences you, and that place at 30 is where you have to now decide how you're going to process all of this information that you've learned in that time frame, how you're going to process it and allow that to influence your life going forward. And I like that, because in an innocent way, as you presented it, from a Christ standpoint, from a biblical standpoint, I really appreciate that, because it does fit into the story. It does fit into the story that God tells about his relationship with us. It tells about that starting point where he put it in us he put that ability in us to be like him. And in that first 10, 12, 15 years, but then over that period of time, we begin to, again, get bombarded, being taught different things. And at some point between 12 and 15, we need to decide what we're going to reject and then, 12 and 15, we have more people, especially young ones, that think they're smarter than us, giving us more information. And at some point, and I like the point they said 30, just like with Christ, it was in that moment, that he transitioned. It's in that moment that he began to recognize the lifestyle that he needed to follow. And the scripture in Ephesians talks about a progressive transition out of the personality that's influenced by your own selfish desires into a personality guided and governed by God's standards. And I think it's a great place for us to end, because it's a beautiful concept. It's a beautiful concept that reflects life, real life, but recognizing, as you said, that real life is not by chance. It's actually God's story. It actually fits within the narrative of God's story about his relationship with us. So, powerful point. Powerful point.
I walked a fine line there.
Well, it's the beauty is, as I've said this to you before, you are one of Jehovah's Witnesses. You just don't wear it like I do. You see, you recognize these truths. You recognize these truths. These are truths. In fact, we were talking yesterday in our meeting, and we're talking about prophecy. And one of the beautiful things that we're talking about is prophetic truth. A lot of times, because you see a lot of things that was described in the Bible has happened. Okay. And even as we see today, people's attitude and, the conflicts and all the stuff that's going on. And one of the things that we're going to talk about next week, I was thinking about it today, but we'll talk about next week, is the idea of one, and I know we all agree that we're living in a time of transition. We're living in a time that we call the last days, and that the life like this cannot go on. And something has to happen. And I know you have said in the past That's what civilizations go through. That's what happened. The difference between you and I, and we're going to talk about it next week, is that you believe this is going to something else is going to come in and it's going to start over. I believe that something that's coming in is God's kingdom. So there's not going to be another human government in place, but there's going to be a God government in place, and we're not going to repeat this again. We'll talk next week, my brother. Love you. This was a powerful conversation, and thanks for that. Points of transition in our life as we see it in Jesus' life in the Bible. We do that. We see that. It's evident. And again, there's probably something in your teaching as a yogi and in other teachings that you do. You probably should develop that concept a little deeper and share it with people, because it's something if people really think about it and truly dissect it, they can then begin to apply it in their life, see how they transition or see how they did not transition.
Right. Yeah.
But recognizing, maybe like you've said, it's not too late. So your 12-year-old doesn't have to be specifically 12. It's just an element of recognition. Your 30 years doesn't have to be at 30. It's an element of recognition. Right. So once you recognize that transition point, now you can then begin to take ownership. You can begin to reflect on how do I get rid of the old personality, which is governed by my selfish desires, my ego, and then put on a different personality that is one that's guided by spirit. And I'll end the term, not religion, but spirit. I know you would appreciate that.
Definitely. Always a blessing, man. Always a blessing.